country is set to embrace a historical day today as the revised complete map of Nepal is being endorsed by the parliament, including Limpiathura region. Meanwhile, all the political parties in the House of Representatives have agreed for constitution amendment to officially incorporate the complete political and administrative map of Nepal in the national emblem. Good morning, I am Bipashna Tamang and these are the headlines of the hour. Complete map of Nepal including Limpiathura to be endorsed by Parliament today. All parties in House of Representatives agree for constitution amendment. Protests held against the government citing poor handling of the ongoing coronavirus crisis. Government urges protesters to consider the gravity of current crisis. An Indian national killed in a clash between border security personnel of Nepal and a group of Indians in Sarlahi district. 3 Nepalese police and 2 other Indians injured in the incident. And hundreds of people take to the streets in cities across Lebanon amid escalating protests as the country faces a collapse in its currency. The revised complete map of Nepal is being endorsed by the parliament today, including Limpiathura region. Meanwhile, all the political parties in the House of Representatives have agreed for constitution amendment to officially incorporate the complete political and administrative map of Nepal. The constitution amendment is to pave the way to include the revised map and the national emblem. Minister for Law, Justice and Parliamentary Affairs Shivamaya Tumba Hamfe is to present a bill related to the amendment of the constitutional provision so as to incorporate the complete map of Nepal that includes Limpiathura in the national emblem. The minister herself is scheduled to propose for the endorsement of the bill at today's parliament meeting. Additional 11 individuals have tested positive for the novel coronavirus in Nepal this morning, taking the total number of infections in the country to 5,073. 6 people in Parsa, 4 people from Parvat and 1 in eastern Navalparasi tested positive for the virus today. Meanwhile, Nepal saw the highest single-day spike of coronavirus yesterday as 448 new cases were reported. More than 4,000 more individuals have tested positive for the virus in the country in the past 15 days. The death toll stands at 17 as 1 more deceased individual has been confirmed with the virus today. Speaking at the daily press briefing yesterday afternoon on the status of coronavirus in the country, spokesperson for the Health Ministry, Dr. Jageshwar Gautam, informed that the new cases reported yesterday include 424 males and 24 females. 5,925 new tests through the PCR method were carried out in the past 24 hours, taking the total number of tests using the PCR method to 121,862. Likewise, 188,052 rapid diagnostic tests have been carried out so far, including 9,909 in the past 24 hours. Over 175,000 are in quarantine across the country, while more than 4,000 are in isolation at the moment. 16 COVID-19 patients registered full recovery yesterday and were discharged from various isolation centers and hospitals, including 12 males and 4 females. With this, the total number of recoveries stands at 877, including 786 males and 91 females. Clashes with Nepalese security personnel at the Nepal India border are rising as Indian nationals try to enter Nepal forcefully. Indian nationals have attacked the Nepalese security post on 14 occasions since the border was sealed due to COVID-19 pandemic. An Indian national was killed yesterday in a clash between border security personnel of Nepal and a group of Indians in Sarlahi district. The Nepal-India border has been sealed since almost 3 months to contain the spread of COVID-19. The armed police force have increased their patrolling at the border region after the number of people sneaking into the country increased. However, Indian nationals arriving in groups have attacked the security personnel of the Nepalese security force from time to time. A team of armed police force deployed for border security along the Nepal India was attacked yesterday morning by a group of Indians at Narayanpur of Parsa village municipality in Sarlahi district. When the security force tried to stop the Indians from forcefully entering Nepal, a large group of Indians attacked them. When the armed police force blank fired to take the situation under control, the group of Indians instead tried to snatch the weapons from the security personnel. An armed police force officer said an Indian national was killed when the security personnel fired in self-defense and to save the weapons from being snatched. 3 Nepalese armed policemen along with 2 Indians were injured in yesterday's incident. The Indian nationals who tried to snatch the weapons of the armed police force is in police custody. India has remained silent on the questions raised by Nepalese security personnel regarding the attacks at the border region. Nepal has also time and again raised questions on the attacks carried out by the Indian Security Force SSP at the Nepal-India border region. Govinda Gautam was killed in Kantipur 3 years ago when the Indian Security Force entered Nepalese territory and opened fire. The National Human Rights Commission had recently made public a report which showed that Nepalese living at the border region in Bardia and other districts were disappeared by the Indian Security Force. Efforts should be taken from the political level to control such attacks at the border region and to find a long-term solution to border security. And we'll take a short break here. We have more news coming up. Welcome back. Mass protests has continued today as well in major cities of the country, fleeing the government for not taking effective measures in containing the spread of COVID-19 in the country and against the rampant corruption seen amid the crisis. Protest rallies mainly participated by youths have been held in different cities including Kathmandu, Bhaktapur, Dhulikhel, Butwal, Tulsipur and Dhangadi. Although the government has not eased the restriction on holding gatherings, the youths protested peacefully by holding placards and maintaining social distance. The youths are protesting against the government, demanding further details of the 10 billion rupees the government spent to combat novel coronavirus in Nepal. The protesters are also demanding to stop the use of RDT kits and expand the parameters of testing through the PCR method. Meanwhile, the government has unveiled the general details of the 10 billion rupees of expenses which it said incurred to contain the novel coronavirus outbreak. According to the government, it allocated 1.3 billion rupees for provincial governments to combat the pandemic, likewise 50 million rupees for mobilizing human resources. According to the details unveiled this morning, 3.9 billion rupees were sanctioned for medicines and medical equipment. Meanwhile, the COVID-19 Crisis Management Committee (CCMC) has said it is aware of the ongoing countrywide protests and urged protesters to consider the gravity of the crisis. The committee has urged protesters to take into consideration the vulnerability of the ongoing global pandemic. Deputy Prime Minister Ishwar Pokhrel, who leads the committee, admitted of poor management of quarantine facilities and expressed commitment in improving mistakes and said that the government would release details of expenses incurred to combat coronavirus at the earliest. Meanwhile, CCMC held its first meeting in 2 months at Singhadarbar yesterday. Prior to this, the committee's regular meetings were being held at the Army's barrack in Chhaoni. The committee had been criticized by several ministers for holding meetings at the Army unit, citing that the Army had overpowered the administration. On Wednesday, the committee added 3 ministers as members to support its works. The committee is led by Deputy Prime Minister Ishwar Pokhrel and has 9 ministers, Chief Secretary and Chief of Army Staff, among others. And it's time now for our segment Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion.
Public Pulse.
And here's the question: why haven't the local levels stopped the uncontrolled exploitation of river-based resources? Your options are option A, greed for revenue, option B, nexus with businessmen, and option C, exploiters' upper hand. The voting is on. Type NEWS, select your options A, B or C and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. And time now for our special segment, Media Watch.
The government has decided to ease the ongoing nationwide lockdown that was imposed in the country since 24th of March to contain the spread of COVID-19. While unveiling Wednesday's cabinet decisions, government spokesperson and finance minister Yuvraj Khatiwada informed on Thursday that the government had opted for phase-wise lifting of the restrictions imposed on economic activities. The government has allowed all services related to healthcare to fully operate and banks and financial institutions to resume services. The government has also decided to allow shops and businesses to reopen. Likewise, the government has decided to allow private vehicles to run based on their odd and even number plates in low-risk areas, including Kathmandu Valley. In the case of four-wheelers, only 2 passengers, excluding the person behind the wheels, are allowed to travel, while two-wheelers will be limited to just the rider. The government, however, has not allowed operating long-distance bus services, barring people from crossing the districts. The government has also allowed restaurants to reopen with only takeaway facilities. Likewise, all government and private offices are to resume from 15th of June with 2 shifts, the first from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. and second from 1 p.m. to 6 in the evening. However, educational institutions, shopping malls, cinema halls, beauty parlors will remain closed, while international and domestic flights and all festivals, exhibitions and gatherings will remain suspended until further notice. Sports and recreational activities, religious and public places will also remain closed. Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, while responding to the questions raised by lawmakers at the House of Representatives on Wednesday regarding the budget for the upcoming fiscal year, stated that the novel coronavirus outbreak in the country would attain its peak by mid-August and that the effect of the virus would remain for an additional 1 month after that. Citing that containing the current coronavirus pandemic would not be possible by the government's effort alone, Premier Oli stressed on the need of unified effort from all the political parties and stakeholders. Oli stated the COVID-19 pandemic has terrified almost every country in the world, and containing it has been more challenging for a country like Nepal with limited resources. Speaking at the Parliament on Wednesday, Premier Oli said that the government has been putting in maximum efforts to prevent the virus from spreading further. The Prime Minister, however, admitted that the infection rate has surged due to the lack of adequate quarantine facilities and screening, which he attributed to the unrestrained entry of thousands of citizens from the border transits. Prime Minister Oli said that around 215,000 Nepalese have entered the country from India in the past 1 month and that around 1,000 have been crossing into Nepal every day. In a different context, the Prime Minister claimed that there were no irregularities in purchasing the medical equipment and the management of quarantine centers. Prime Minister Oli also pledged to take legal action against anyone found involved in such irregularities. The Premier, however, did not clarify the opposition's demand to the government to furnish details of 10 billion rupees spent to contain coronavirus. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Oli expressed satisfaction on the solidarity expressed by parties on constitution amendment to officially incorporate the revised political and administrative map of Nepal. The Parliament also endorsed the budget for the upcoming fiscal year by majority votes. Spontaneous mass protests were staged in major cities of the country on Thursday, flaying the government for not taking effective measures in containing the spread of coronavirus and regarding the rampant corruption amid the crisis. Protest rallies, mainly participated by youths, were held in different cities including Kathmandu, Pokhara, Biratnagar and Bharatpur, among others, amid the ongoing nationwide lockdown. Protesters chanted slogans against the government, demanding details of the 10 billion rupees that the government said it had spent to combat novel coronavirus in Nepal. Likewise, the protesters demanded to stop the use of RDT kits and expand the parameters of testing using the PCR method. Police intervened in the protest organized by youths in the capital's Balwatar area. Police also used water cannons and tear gas shells to disperse the crowd. Similar protests were also organized in Pokhara, Biratnagar and Bharatpur, criticizing the government for slack response in containing coronavirus and lack of transparency in its spending. Demonstrators demanded for an investigation on the case of hefty payment for medical supplies bought by the Department of Health Service and the Nepal Army, as the participants urged the government to take stern action against the culprits. Protesters also flagged the government's directive to pay taxes at a time when all economic activities had been suspended due to COVID-19. This is Sarah Sapsanama for Media Watch and Kantipur News Desk.
And that's all for the moment. Keep watching Kantipur Television HD for more news and entertainment. Thank you for watching. Have a great day ahead.